Welcome to the Sports Desk, everyone. I'm Scott Rapoport, in for Steve Overmeyer tonight. Well, we're days away from the Jets and Giants' first preseason game. Joining us to talk about Big Blue is Giants reporter for The Athletic, Dan Duggan. Dan, thanks for joining us tonight. Big question. Giants going to the Super Bowl this year? What do you think?
I think we might be a little early making those types of predictions, but camp's always off to a good start at this point, relatively healthy. So we'll see about the Super Bowl.
So you're not ready to boldly commit right now?
Not yet.
All right, so let's talk about training camp. First impressions, you cover them. This is what you do.
Yeah, I mean, camp is always a little tough because everyone's in the best shape of their life. Everyone always looks great when they, come back and everyone's feeling fresh. You really get to start to learn about the team in the preseason games because at least then you're going against different teams. But really, you're not going to know anything until we get to the real game in September. And we've spent all offseason analyzing every move. But, you really won't know for a couple more weeks.
All right, you opened the door. You said some of these guys look really good. Who looks visually right now, just visually, who looks really good right now?
I mean, you obviously have to start with Saquon Barkley. I mean, he always looks good, and certainly no reason to expect a sophomore slump out of him. I mean, he's come out of the gates, looking every bit as good as you would like. The guy who looks actually really good and would probably be making a bigger deal about it if he didn't have a suspension looming is Golden Tate. I mean, he was sort of the big offseason signing. For a 31-year-old, doesn't really look like he's lost a step. But again, it's hard to get too excited when they're probably not going to see him until October.
Okay, but it ain't a perfect thing in camp. There have been some injuries. Talk about that and the effects overall.
Yeah, well, I mean, it felt like at the wide receiver position, the sky was falling a little bit when they opened camp because, again, you have the Tate suspension news. Sterling Shepard broke his thumb on the first day. You have rookie Darius Slayton, who still hasn't gotten on the field with a hamstring injury. Corey Coleman, who was sort of a dark horse to maybe be an X factor, he tore his ACL. But I think the big news really there is that Shepard's thumb injury isn't serious. I mean, they have him out there practicing now, pretty much fully participating, which I was a little surprised by. I mean, he's kind of a known commodity. I don't know if you need to risk him right now, maybe re-injuring that thumb. But the fact that his thumb looks fine, that's really the biggest news. The other injuries, I think they'll be all right.
Well, he's a true baller. Earlier in the week, we were showing highlights of him at camp after the injury. He's making catches with one hand. Odell who?
Yeah, they can't keep him off the field, and that's a good thing. Like I said, sometimes I think a little more discretion, though, because if they lose him, they're going to be in real big trouble.
Yeah. Eli Manning getting all the first-team reps with the team. That's surprising. How's he looking, first of all? Let's ask you that.
Yeah, I mean, he's looking sharp. I mean, I think that, everyone kind of wants to make broad proclamations. I mean, it's his 16th year. I don't think he's going to look drastically different this year. Maybe if the offensive line is a little bit better, that'll help him. But a lot's been made of always throwing the ball harder, and he trained differently this offseason. I don't put a ton of stock into that. I mean, I think he kind of is who he is. He's 38 years old. I don't think there's going to be a drastic turnaround. But from what we've seen in camp, he has looked sharp. The one thing I've noticed, though, he's not throwing the ball down the field very much. And that's going to be a big question about this offense as you go into the season without Odell, without that big playmaker. Can they dink and dunk their way to wins? And I think that's something a little skeptical about.
Interesting you say that because the stuff coming out of camp is, yes, he did train differently this year, and it looks it and it shows it, and that he is putting some extra zip on the ball. I'm a news guy. You're a sports guy. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think the thing holding Eli Manning back the last couple of years is a mile or 2 miles an hour off his fastball. I think it's a lot of the decision making and feeling the rush and being able to make plays like that. So, again, it sounds great. He can't get hit yet. Again, he's not hitting the downfield.
That's kind of a big thing also.
Right, and especially with him, because that's sort of been the thing. And can an older quarterback turn back the clock if he does get the protection? I think they're hoping to find that out. But I just don't put a ton of stock into his arm is strong in August. It doesn't mean a lot to me.
All right, put you on the spot. What do you see from Eli this year?
I mean, I think he's going to be the guy until they're out of playoff contention. Now, how you define playoff contention is sort of in the eye of the beholder, but I don't think they're going to be in a rush to make the transition to Daniel Jones. But I also don't think they're going to just stick with Eli through thick and thin, which they have done the last couple of seasons. They have a guy now that they're going to need to get a look at some point in Jones. So if they start 1-7 again like they did last year, they'll be a little quicker to pull the plug.
Yeah, so when do you think we see Mr. Jones? Is it 5 games in, 10 games in, this season, next season, the Kansas City model? What are we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think a lot of it depends on how the team, does. That's sort of a cop-out answer, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you, it'll be week 8 because they're going to start out, 2-5. I don't know that. I don't think this is going to be a Super Bowl team, spoiler to your first question. So I think at some point they probably will kind of, fade from serious contention. And I think it would be kind of, malpractice to not get Jones on the field at some point this season. Again, unless they surprise us all and they're 12-4 and they're really going that Kansas City model. I think they have to get Jones on the field, and I would think at some point in the second half of the season, get him a couple of starts just so you know what you have going into 2020.
Yeah, I mean, he is the future. They spent a number 6 overall pick on him. What do you think about that? A lot of talk, hey, we could have got this guy at 17. We got him at 6. And also, was this guy really a top 15? Was he a first-round guy? What do you think? You've watched him.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the argument of 6 or 17 kind of can't see the forest through the trees there. I mean, if you love a quarterback, I'm not waiting 11 picks and hoping he's there because that's a little bit better value. If they love the guy, if they're wrong at 17, it's not going to be any better than being wrong at 6. So I think they did the right thing. If they have a conviction on him, they have to go get him. Now, the other part of your question there, is he worthy of the 6th pick? I mean, we obviously won't know the answer to that for years. I'll say from the first impressions, he doesn't look overwhelmed. I mean, I think people were expecting maybe this kid's going to come in and be bouncing passes out there. I mean, he looks fine. He has the physical tools, very poised, very much Eli 2.0 in terms of on the field, off the field, mannerisms, everything. So I think that's something that obviously attracted this franchise to him because they've had 15 good years with Eli. But yeah, the jury's obviously still out on if he'll actually become Eli and have 2 Super Bowl rings.
Now, as you said, is it me? I watched this guy in the news conferences at the podium. This is like Eli circa 2004. I mean, visually, sound-wise, sound bites, the whole deal.
No, I mean, he could be, Archie's, son that we don't know about or something because he really is. He's cut from that same cloth, very poised. He's never going to give us anything great in terms of headlines because he's always very measured in what he says. Again, it's all going to come down to can he play, but in terms of being the face of the franchise, I think, they definitely have a good guy there.
Preliminarily, what are the teammates saying about him?
They all love him. And I think it's sort of a thing that happens in sports where he got a lot of criticism, that pick got a lot of criticism. They're going to rally around their guy. But I do think, he has looked pretty good. I mean, I think they've been impressed. Again, if he was bouncing throws out there, at some point, reality would hit. But, he's looked sharp, and I think these guys are obviously pulling for him. They know, as you said, he's the future of the franchise, so they've really rallied behind him.
All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or the elephant that split for Cleveland. Odell Beckham, big talent, bigger attitude. Have you noticed a change in the culture on the team, in the locker room? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I don't think we'll really see that type of thing manifest itself till we get into the season and, either they're winning games and you can say, oh, it's because of this great culture, or if they're losing games, you'll say, well, obviously it didn't matter that much. I'm of the belief that stuff's a little overstated. I think culture is important, and I think Gettleman did a good job kind of weeding out some bad apples. I just wonder if he went too far because, on 3rd and 8, culture isn't going to get a guy open, and that's, Odell could do that. He could take a slant and go 65 yards and turn a game, on the snap of a finger. So I think some of the culture stuff with him is a little overstated. Is he a lightning rod? Does he say some things in interviews you might not want to hear? Sure. But a guy, he plays on Sundays and does things that most guys can't do, and I really think this team is going to miss that talent.
So this year, the offense runs through Saquon Barkley. No doubt about it. Fantastic rookie year. What can we expect from him this year, and can he top what he's done already? You say no.
Yeah, topping that's going to be near impossible, and that's no slight on him. He set the bar so high. The rookie year was absolutely brilliant. I don't know how you really go up from there. Obviously the big difference, and he has said it all along, is he wants wins. So, if he has 2,000 yards from scrimmage and they go 5-11 again, you're not going to say, oh, that was a great year, because at some point it needs to translate to wins. But he certainly, checks all the boxes and has done everything to, put the team in position to win. He needs the supporting cast to kind of step up around him.
How big of a relief is this guy, of a safety valve is this guy for an Eli Manning or also for young Daniel Jones?
Yeah, I think 31 quarterbacks would love to have that guy lining up behind him. So like you said, it's great for Eli, but probably more importantly for Daniel Jones, because he's going to step into an offense that already has one of the best weapons in the league. Again, whether that's in 10 games, 20, next year, at some point, that's going to be Daniel Jones. That's going to be his main guy. So that's certainly a piece that'll ease that transition whenever that time comes.
And what about the D? A lot of new faces. We talk about true dogs and ballers out there. What do you think?
Yeah, that's the bigger question mark for me. I think the offense will be pretty solid. They've upgraded the offensive line. Again, you have Saquon. You still have guys like Shepard and Tate. So I think the offense will be solid. Defensively, there's a lot of question marks that they're counting on. A lot of young guys to step up. A lot of new faces to kind of, step in and make an impact right away. I'm a little skeptical. Usually it doesn't, snap your fingers, and it doesn't happen that fast. It usually takes a little bit of time. So I think that the jury's still definitely out on that defense.
Gettleman says, trust me. Your one-word answer, yes or no?
Not yet.
Not yet. We understand you got a podcast going on. Where can we hear it? What are you calling it? Give us the info.
The name is still kind of in development. It's a new podcast. It'll be dropping, I think, the week of August 19th. It'll be debuting, and you can get it on theathletic.com.
That's awesome, mate. Great to see you. Thanks for coming in. Doing it live tonight.